Okay, guys, we have quite a lot to cover in this one. I made quite a few changes from the last video. We'll just go through it now. The first thing is we had some issues using with Windows and using Terraform and Ansible, so I decided to just package everything up into Docker to just make it easier. So I created this Docker folder inside which has a Docker file for Ansible, which just uses the Python Slim image, install the updates, and then all the SSH client is obviously needed. Um, the CS certificates are also needed, and then we remove everything that we don't want. Then we install Ansible. Here, this was something else I was working on with the weights script. Tell about that another time. And then we have our Terraform Docker file, which was pretty simple. We had a few issues with the Terraform Docker file. We'll get into that later. Just a simple use the HashiCorp base image, and then install bash, curl, and JQ transfer parsing. Um, YAML files. Then put everything together in this Docker Compose file. So first we run Terraform, and the context will be this current folder, and then the Docker file for Terraform is in here, which is on Docker Terraform Docker file, and then name the working directory work, and the comes from here. I have some variables which needs to be used, and then we just bind monk to volume one would be the entire directory, the home blog entire directory, and the other would be the artifacts, and the artifacts here holds the output of the Terraform output. Okay, we'll put it later on. So the artifacts here holds the Terraform output, and then this here is just simple init apply and output, and here Terraform output dash station into the artifact. So I saved it as a temp file first, and then I renamed it into the output file. I'll tell you why I did this later on. But the main gist of everything here is the script. Okay, so with the script, local deploy, I haven't started working on that yet. We had a few errors with the script, but the main gist of everything here is the script file, because this script file does everything. So from the Docker Compose, so this Terraform service just runs it, builds the Docker file, bind monks the to volume, and just run this sh, and as you just pin this here, just run that sh just allows Terraform to run. Okay, and then the Ansible one, again everything is the same context, the Docker file is just in a different directory. Okay, it depends on um, Terraform, but I figured out later on that depends on Terraform just means that it will Terraform will start before it. It just changes the order in which it started. And when I go through some of the errors that I had, you'll understand why this is not the best. But I just kept it in. Environment file is the same. Okay, and this here was needed. I had to do some Google search to figure this one out, the Python buffer. So this helps with pushing the Ansible logs directly into the buffer so that I can see it within the Docker Compose logs. And yeah, so these two go together, and then again we bind mount the whole directory, we bind mount the artifacts because this is the output from Terraform. and then this is just standard, which just says which is the SSH key from my local system. And here, after everything has been run, then we do the build inventory um, item script. So we'll just go through. There's quite a lot happening in the script, and I did use a little bit of AI to help me out, but more or less 80% of the script was mine. So this is the output part where the Terraform will produce the IP addresses of the nodes that were created, and then the inventory where it will be saved at the end. And the user is just me. Of course, all of this can be changed. They just hard coded for now, but we can change them. Um, we can change them later on. Okay, so time to jump into the error. So this first function here, wait for output. As again, just pin this. We'll come back to it a lot. As I was saying in the Docker file, so at first when I use depend on Terraform, I assume that the Terraform service will run in its entirety, then the Ansible service will start. But that's not how it works. Depends on simply states that the Terraform service will start container will start first, and then the Ansible um, container will start. So this brought about quite a few errors. Um, Quite a few errors. For one, at the end, the Ansible container will just start and stop immediately because the artifact folder or file wasn't populated with the Terraform output as yet, so there was nothing to work with. So what I needed to have Docker desktop up and running, I'll show you guys. What I needed was for the Ansible container to wait and constantly check the artifacts folder for the output. And when this output is available, then it can run and go through the rest of the process in the build.python. And this is what this function does. Okay, so this is just it takes two arguments, path and time. Time has a default of it's an integer default of 600. This is in second, and path. This is just from the. It's just an type, but it's not a fixed type. We just put it in um just in just in case when I wrote this and I got it working, and I asked AI to fix it up. This part was put in. Okay. So we're waiting for the Terraform output at the current path, which we will input it as here. Okay. So start time here creates a start time in seconds, the current time in seconds. So while this time, which is another current time will be created minus the start time, which is previously created, is less than the timeout, which is 600, which will be about 10 minutes. Okay, so basically it will check these two times, the start time in seconds and this time here, and make sure that they're less than 10 minutes. So while this is running, and the path exists, so the file exists, and the file has, if the file exists and if the file has content in it, then we start doing this. So this basically just puts everything on pause, and then we wait before we do anything else. So what we'll load the content, and then check to see if there are all nodes IP in the data of the content, and the output looks like this. Okay, and there is this all those IP, which is what we want. The IP address is what's important to us, so we just does this exist? Okay, and if that exists, then Terraform output detected, and we just return the data. If it doesn't, if there's an error in it, meaning that the file does exist, but there was an error reading it, or it's not loaded properly, then it will just throw this JSON decode error and then pass, and it will just go right back up to the top, and will give it just a 2 second wait time before it tries again, so that it doesn't continuously do it over and over. Okay. Or and then if the time is up, then it will just throw this. The output wasn't ready in time. So this first function allows Ansible to wait. I played around with the time here, and 10 minutes is enough for my setup on Proxmox. It might take you, depending on where you're running it on, it might be faster. So that's our first function. Okay. So our next function, which again uh, is an important one, is as list. So the Terraform output, as you can see here, is an object, is an object, but we want the values of the host names and the IPs as lists to be able to work with them. So what we do here, we take in the data as a dictionary, or a dictionary in Python, or object, okay, and then we host name, okay, so data that get all nodes host name, okay, and this extra dictionary here just means if we don't find that, just return a blank. Okay, this is just where I got it. I did some research to find this. Um, just return a blank. Okay, so let's just see what this produced. So just split the screen to show you, because this was a pretty heavy function to write on my side before I used AI to fix it up. Okay, and apologies for making it so long-winded. The goal here is to show you that the capability is there. I know AI makes everything easy to do. Code can spit out tons, hundreds of lines of code in minutes, but you still need someone that understands what's happening. Okay, there's an error with Docker desktop. Oh, further. So let's move on. So yes, here we are with as list. So it takes in the Terraform output object. Okay, and if the Terraform output object is a dictionary, and value is in it, then you return it. Okay, or then you return it. If not, you just return it. So what it does basically, it takes in this full object here, or um, any parts of it. For example, here, this first this first part of it here, and if value is in it, then it returns it. Okay, that means it has what we want in it. Okay, it returns it, or and returns it. Okay, so it's basically we check it to see if it has value. Okay, if it's already a dictionary, then it just returns. Okay, or if it's a dictionary and it has value, just it returns the value. Next, we build host IP map. Okay, again we take in the dictionary. Okay, which would be here. So as list, which is this, then we do data that get all nodes host name. So let's find it. All nodes host names here. So we get this portion. Okay. And then when we get all those host name, we run it through the as list function. So is um, is this object a dictionary? Yes. And value is in it? Yes. So you return this object with this object value. So you return these three. So these three value get saved into host name. And then we do the same for IP. Onwards IP here. It's the same thing that's happening. So what's basically saying, we get all nodes IP, we got it, okay. As list, we bring it up, it jumps into this function. Is it a dictionary and it has value? It is a dictionary and it has value. Wait, so we return this dictionary value. So we return this aspect of it. So this here, this IP, equals to these three IP addresses here. Next, so now that we have all the host names and all the IP addresses, okay, we can build a map of it. Meaning, we want it to be hostname colon IP address, hostname colon IP address, hostname colon IP address. So we can build that up. So if not an instance of hosting or not an instance of IP, you raise an error. Okay, so if the host name, if both of them are not a list, so we should get if they're not a list, then we get an error. This is just for error handling to make sure everything is okay. And this one also is just to check to make sure that the lengths are the same. So there's three values here for the host name. There should be three values here for the IPs. If they don't match, you check. So this here is just checking to make sure they're all good. And then here is our map again. So we have the string of the host, strip, take out all the white space, colon, the string of the IP, the strip, take out all the white spaces. And this zip function was a nice one. Never used it before, but it's pretty good. Yeah, so it turns it into a set that you can loop through. So a set of host names and IP. So it takes one from here, one from here. And this here will this build host name map will map out host name with IPs. Okay, so that's about sorted. Okay, so here this is a separate function I added in at the end. At first it didn't need it at first, but I added it in at the end because I'm working on the system. I could have just copied the IP, and which I did in one instance. Where did I put it? I think I chucked it into Terraform Proxmox. Here, yes. So I chucked it in here for testing purposes. I'll delete that. Okay. So the key, the public key is saved in the C drive user.ssh. Okay. And when it's mounted into the container, we didn't have access to it. So what we had to do was copy it from keys and copy it into root and then change the permissions on it. So this is simple. Okay, so now that we understand all the functions, we just quickly go through the main. So the first thing we do, we wait to make sure the artifacts folder and file is populating. We build out the map of anything. We build out the map of the host name and the IP addressing. and then we separate the control plane and the worker's IP. So we get control plane, and then we get the control plane host and the worker's host. Again, this was done with Terraform. I deliberately did it to have control plane and the worker so that we can get them all together and we can get them separated. And of course, this builds on top of them. This can be removed because we did set up the path, and then everything else here is just writing directly. Sorry, writing directly to the host.ini file. So one thing to yeah, so everything else above is just writing. Chuck everything in a list and just write it to the host.ini file. So one thing important point is that we ran the Ansible playbook from inside of here, from inside this Python script. So we just created a variable with the list of the two commands that we need to run, and then we just look over the list. Okay. We just look over the list, and here this is just printing out what we're doing. Here is where we use the puppet to run. And this was at first I used run, and then I changed it to puppet because I had a problem with viewing the errors. This just gives more options. Okay, this just gives more options, and yeah, and then we just say finish. So Docker Compose builds Docker images, builds the Docker file, got the Docker images, the Docker container. First it runs Terraform, then it runs Ansible. Ansible grabs the IP, the scripts grabs the IP addresses and synthesizes it, and then we chuck it into the host.ini. Prints out just like this. If you look you look here, you'll just see everything control plane, print it out. This is what's looking over there. Then we have walker, print it out, child, control. This is just, everything is just printed out here. Okay, everything else is printed out here. So sweet. And then we get our host.ini file, which is great. Okay, and then next from that, we needed two playbooks. Okay, the first playbook here will install Kubernetes on all the servers, and then it will promote one to be the master or control plane, and then it adds the other two as workers under it. So this installation, it's quite a long Ansible Ansible file, but it's not as difficult as you guys see because this is just basically all taken from the install guide online, and it just tells you you need to disable swap, and it said you also need to remove it from FS tab. I didn't know. I tried different ways to remove it from FS tab, but the easiest way I found was this guy, and was Stack Overflow. Even though Stack Overflow is dead right now, just use this, which is pretty sweet. All it does, checks for white space. It makes sure it doesn't start with a hashtag and then spaces, and it has swap spaces. So it basically checks for the line in the FS tab that has swap at the first, second, fourth, fourth field, fourth field, and a fifth field, and replaces it with this. Okay, and then you register it as FS swap, which is just a variable. I haven't used this variable yet in the rest of it, but I have it for debugging purposes. And then the rest is all from the Kubernetes website. So you load the kernel module, you set system, CTL parameters, you apply the kernel modules, you install the required package, except this one. This one here wasn't part of the online guide from the Kubernetes official doc. This was an error that I had. So when there is a new install of a operating system, it usually has some unattended upgrades running in the background, which tends to lock these files. So when it did, this install here, apt install, tend to wasn't able, it froze up because of the lock. So doing some research, we found that this is the best way to do it. And this change when equal false just um, tells Ansible don't register this as any change when you run a playbook. It's just a configuration, so we didn't want to register it as a change. Okay. And then we install the packages as needed. Then we install our runtime. We use container D. We configure container D. Then we add repo again. All this is online. The only thing we might have to research is what a specific module to use from Ansible. But all of these are just pretty standard modules. And you install Kubernetes, and this can be installed using apt now that you've added the the, the repo. And this one I found online, which is the whole package version, which was a nice one, so that nothing changes, which was also a recommendation in the documentation. And then we configure Kubernetes node host to so that the IP of the node matches the host IP. Basically, the IP of the node is the IP of the virtual machine, which is fine, and then we just actually take that from it. Ansible fact, the default IP address. Probably was an easier way to do that. Easier way to do that, but that's what that's what I did. Okay. And then this is a nice concept of the handler. So after you make the changes, you restart it using this handler, and then you initialize the control plane. Okay, we give the pod slider. So I use this slider address initially. I use Calico as my for networking, and the Calico IP address was 192.168.0.0.1, which technically will not contradict with my local IP address either block, because most local system uses the side block. But just to be safe and to avoid issues later on, I changed it. Okay, and then initialize the cluster. Again, all this is standard. Okay, create the config directory. All standard. Copy the admin. Then this one is what we check if Calico is installed. Okay, and then we install Calico. So one thing that's different in the installation of Calico is that inside the YAML, which I just mentioned, this is the IP that is usually used, but we change it into the one above. That's the only change that needs to be made. And then we get the join. So this was a nice one to research and figure out. which is we get a join command, which is cube token create. Okay, now we register it into this variable join cmd. Okay, and then we need to expose this because at first I thought this would just be available to the workers, but it's not. And this here was pretty nice that we could add this join.cmd, okay, as a fact, an Ansible fact, and then an Ansible fact of the of this of the original node, okay, of the group, and then so we add this join the CMD to this Ansible fact, and then we can jump into here using the workers, okay, and we join. The command will be we take the whole stars, we take the control plane group, we should choose the first item onto the control plane, and then we grab the cube join command, okay, and this was just recommended, for publicity, and then this they will get the token. So, so this is the general playbook. This playbook will build, um, install Kubernetes, Calico, and all three. Install Kubernetes on all three. Promote one to the master and the two workers, and then our next playbook here, because remember the point of all of this is to produce a blog website running on a Proxmox server. Okay, so we needed some platform services. So we needed an ingress controller, and we also needed, and this just came up while I was looking at ingress controller metrics server, which tracks the metrics of everything. And then so we check the config, uh, create a namespace for it, and then we install the ingress controller. Make sure the pod is ready, and we install the metric server, and then we patch it. This again, this I got from online. It just states it's needed, and then everything should be up and running. So what we will do now is was watching this nice video. Here, so here we have all three up and running. If we jump into the master router, do a cube ctl cube okay. After we can get service, we see we have our ingress controller. We can on off. We can just do ctl off. Here we are. So okay, yeah. This has everything up and running. So what we'll do now, we'll jump into this. We'll just get Docker up and running one last time. Docker desktop, then we'll happen there. And we'll break down the whole environment. We'll run everything over just to show you that everything is stable. So in here, we need to get rid of a few things. So first of all, we won't need this because this will be uh, populated for us. We won't need our inventory again. This will be populated with the scripts we will want to get rid of the state files because the state files are again hold that information, and then we use the state backup. Okay, there's no state backup. You can also get rid of this one, the providers and let everything. Let everything read over from the beginning. Split. Split. So all that is gone. Let's see this Docker. So Docker is starting here. It should be up pretty soon. Let's just see. I've been having this ridiculous error with WS. This is actually one of the errors that I've taken note of. Yeah, yeah, WSL. So I just take quick notes of why. So we just need to go to PowerShell. Luckily, I took note of that and task kill this WSL service because it's been messing things up. Hence, the only reason why I had to move to. So we need to go PowerShell admin. Yeah. And then process has been killed. Let's quickly exit. And let's see if Docker started up on the phone. It hasn't, so we just exit Docker underneath. That's it. You just go into services. Now we find Windows there. Yeah, Windows it's locked, which is fine, which is what we want. Docker should be able to come up. Docker should be able to come up. And issue, let's just quickly check. Yeah, every time I'm recording, an error happens. Alright, since yesterday, all good. If you, this is yesterday, and it was all good. And now, Docker is playing out. And it's a mod. So, so let's stop here for now. Let's try this one last time and see if it comes up. Because if it does, this would be sweet. But if it doesn't, we just wasted a lot of time. And so while we wait to see if Docker comes up, let's just get through some of the errors. So error number one, the script. We had some publishing error with WSL, as I mentioned, with the files, the public key. So that's why I had to switch. No, the first error we had was Terraform reducing the output, okay, and the output was in UTF-16, which was Windows format. And then when Ansible was trying to read the file, which Ansible was Linux based, even though it's installed on Windows, it's Linux based, Ansible could not read it because it wasn't in UTF-8. And that was one of the main reasons what made me have to switch to using Docker for all both of them. And then second issue was with WSL and messing up Docker. There was a couple instances where WSL just like like now, just messed up Docker and stopped it from working. And I had to reinstall reinstall Docker and it worked, which was a bitch. Um, Another few errors I had on the Docker side. Sorry for the foul language, but read the fucking docs. So I had an issue with Terraform container. Uh, so maybe I can walk through that. I'll just ignore Docker for today. Um, go to the Docker registry and we look for yeah, Azure Terraform. Then go Terraform. Um, just see some. So here, which which tripped me up a lot is that the Terraform image, the entry point is Terraform. So anything you add to it runs Terraform in front of it. So I was putting um, I was putting where's my entry point Terraform, you know, Terraform this, Terraform that, and it keeps breaking to the point that I just had to use Ubuntu image and just install everything on it, and just go to use the bash entry point, you know. But then I went back to the image and I removed the entry point from here, and I set it in the Docker Compose, and that helped. That helped a lot. So keep that in mind. Read the fucking container docs. If you don't, you can bite your ass. This is the simplest error. And I cut my head. Entry point was terrifying. Next. This is just reiterating the same error and how I fixed it. Okay, so I had another issues with the entry point and command and what the difference is and how just give me a second, I'm almost finished. It's beautiful, baby. With the entry point and the command, and I just came down to it. The entry point is a program to run, and the command is the argument that goes with the program. That's my general understanding of it. But then while I had the first two problems with Terraform, I had to get clarity on these. I did mention this one already. The depend on, waste the time. Don't depend on, depend on. Because my Docker is going to die. I have to reinstall it. Okay, just get rid of Docker. Don't depend on, depend on. Okay, just dictate the order you start. Okay, the WSL errors we went through that. So that's about it. We can stop it here, and then I'll go fix Docker, and I'll just make a short video afterwards, just basically running everything to show that it was successful. If you see my command line here, this is Ansible successful. I did run it just before I started the video. Let it go through everything. I need to see and